Oh, great. Okay, I'll close my OBS sign. Good. You got it working. Welcome to the Yang Gang Roundtable. It is 12:43 in the PM. We're a little bit late this Friday, August 14th, 2020. And we were going to review Sheridan's book, Social Capitalism and Social Capital, but we're going to put that off till next week so more people on the show.
Let me give you a quick correction. It's Social Capitalism and Social Commentary.
Yes, you're right. That was it. Social Capitalism and Social Commentary. Thank you. So we're going to do that next week. I read it. It's quite good. But we are going to do an open discussion. We've got Faye Doney, myself, and Sheridan for just a nice little update this Friday. How's everybody doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Shale.
Good to hear from you guys. Always. Faye D, how about you?
Excited for my call with Kirk Thatcher later today for the documentary I'm working on. He's going to give me some advice, and I'm going to pick his brain a little bit on strategy. So I'm really excited for this call.
Please give the whole backstory just in case people might not have heard the previous episodes where you explained in brief what this call is about.
Okay, so I'm making a documentary about the biggest movement you've never heard of, and that's what it's going to be called. I finally made a Facebook page. But yeah, so anyway, there's just a lot of movements behind the scenes that I've seen, and I want to essentially initially get him to help me with my pitch so that I can get this documentary on Netflix as quickly as possible. I think that literally, if people look at a document about me, I don't think it introduces my excitement. There are subtle cues in just my simple enthusiasm that encourages other people to work with me. So I was like, I have this theory that if I get one call with the right person, I'll get my in because they'll believe in me. And now that it seems like, I don't know, I feel like, I feel very strongly that it'll work because, I practice my speech all the time on other people and it works like about 80% of the time. So,
Good attitude. That's a good attitude. You're comfortable. You're going to succeed. But, if you fail, then that's fine too. It's good.
Yeah, I do this best case, worst case scenario in my head. I'm like, okay, what's the worst case scenario if it goes terribly? And then I go, best case if it goes terribly. And then worst case if it goes well. Best case if it goes well. And I'm like, oh, it's totally all worth it, regardless of whatever turnout it is.
Just 4-part mental construct. That's interesting.
Yeah, it works every time I have something I'm afraid of. Every time. And
so it's like you imagine 2 scenarios for going poorly, 2 scenarios for going well. You have this gradient of 4 options. That's nice. I can see how that'd be reassuring. Yeah.
Yeah, it works pretty well because all fear is imaginary, right? So, in my opinion, safety's illusion, caution is mandatory. So, as long as I try to consider those options when facing my fears, I feel pretty safe and bold to move forward. So, yeah.
Great. Sheridan, I don't think we've heard from you since we started broadcasting. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Very excited to be talking today. Kind of depressed with what we're going to be talking about with this past week, because it's been very unsettling news in the national stage with our despot-in-chief desperately trying to dismantle the USPS, and the Justice Department finally saying that Chad Wolf and his little gremlin, who are in charge of the Department of Homeland Security, are illegally appointed, according to a previously held line of succession. So it's good, but it's not great, and the context is horrible.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how I especially am interested in that USPS, what's happening with the Postal Service, because a lot of people now falsely believe that they're not a profitable, you know,
Well, it doesn't even matter. The Postal Service is written into not only state constitutions, but our federal constitution. It's one of the only offices, along with the presidency, Congress, our judiciary, and the military, that are actually federally mandated by our constitution. They do not, it does not matter if they're profitable. It's completely irrelevant to discuss that.
you're talking about whether or not we keep the Postal Service going as one of our, as a government entity, rather than
Yeah,
trying to sell it
it's written into our constitutions and it's enforced. Like it's ridiculous to even that people can think that, in my opinion. The real concerning issue is the USPS basically Friday night massacre that happened, where our commander in chief appointed a new postmaster general, who then completely wrecked regional postmasters by replacing, I believe, 23 of them in over half the states. And then those postmasters began dismantling the sorting systems and sorting machines that help select out ballots. So it's just crazy.
So the real problem here is that it seems like the way that Trump is tampering with the Postal Service is a way of him basically affecting the outcome of the election coming up.
Oh, this is absolutely a rigged election coming up, because the institutions by which the authority to execute these elections are straight up and down being flipped in authority. At absolute best, this is capital rolling in to disassemble the post office. But we all can clearly see the political gains to be had from a very clear rigged election. So it's just...
So first Trump says that mail-in ballots are obviously going to be bad because, they're completely messed up. But then at the same time, he's saying that Florida's is okay and that he's going to get himself a mail-in ballot.
Oh man, his whole campaign strategy for 2020 has so much dissonance in it. It's ridiculous. Because on top of that he wants specific states to feel that their mail-in ballots are good, he has sent absentee registration on a postcard to millions of Americans who are deceased or have moved from their previous residence. And I have actually gotten one of these postcards, which anyone can fill out and forge to send back to get another ballot. The dissonance between him saying voting by mail is fraudulent, engaging in fraudulent voting by mail, and encouraging people to submit votes for him before he crushes the Postal Service to get everyone else out of the system is just... It's the most egregious act of democracy tampering I've ever seen in American history. Close to world history.
Well, what I had heard today was that he used his Mar-a-Lago address in order to get his mail-in ballots for Florida, and somewhere when he first, got all of his special, government money to help him build Mar-a-Lago, he signed a contract saying that cannot be used as a private residence, right? Because it is a business. And so it's very strange that he's able to do all these crazy things. And I think when he talks about, voter registration fraud or things like that, it's like his criminal mind working. It's like he literally has a criminal mind, and it says, if I were a criminal, I would be doing this. And so
I don't think you're very far off.
It's like
I really don't.
Yeah, when he actually goes ahead and does it, he's like, well, you're going to let me. Why don't I?
Because
It's so crazy.
he could have
I
kept
think it's just that
breaking
simple. I think
in.
you really hit the nail on the head there, Faye.
He just straight out tells you before he's going to do stuff. You going to stop me or not? Well, you're not going to stop me. I'm going to go ahead and do it.
There was one article that floated around the political science Twitter, and it painted a really dark picture for Trump's removal, and the framework was just terrible. But I could really see him wanting to force such a dramatic scene just so that he can, I don't know, have the glory of being in a movie.
Well, he is the ultimate reality star president, as we know. So I'm sure in his mind he's constantly writing the movie that he's in.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem. He gets on the mic and he treats it like an improv performance, and it works, and that means the system is broken.
So for those people who are concerned about how and where to find the enumerated powers of Congress, it's in Section 8 of I think Article 1 that lays out how our government is going to work. Article 1 of the United
Lays
States
out our
yes.
Congress and how it's organized, and then it allows states to have their own Congresses.
Yes, but in the enumerated powers section, Section 8, the powers of Congress, it specifically says the Congress shall have power to do certain things. And one of the things that we like to talk about here is the money aspects. We have the rights to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises to pay.
Oh man, I totally forgot about that. It's been so crazy. Thank you for bringing that up. I know exactly what you're going to talk about next.
Oh, really? Well, I mean, it also includes 2 established post offices and post roads as a specific, power. So it's not expanding the powers of government from the basic, the founding of our nation.
No, it's not. But this past week, something insane, truly constitutionally insane, did happen. The president used executive orders to levy taxes and to extend the unemployment insurance. He literally stole the power of the purse from Congress. And everyone's just like, yeah, we needed to do it because this is a crisis. And I cannot believe that's not the headline for the past. President usurps Congress.
It's really tough right now because people need the money, and Congress is constantly deadlocked. They can't seem to get anything done, and then they go on these vacations. We were told they weren't going on vacation, but essentially
the Congress,
they're doing the work now.
I'm right there with you that this was definitely needed, but the precedent that this sets allows for a absolute monarchy to take place. For Trump to literally brush Congress and the judiciary aside and literally take all the power into the executive.
Well, Plato said
brutal.
Years ago, like Plato already called this. He said when you have a democracy, people will demand too much, and then eventually they will clamor for a tyrant to come along and take over. And that is exactly what we're doing right now. We're clamoring for somebody to fire everybody. Let's fire all of Congress and start over because they just can't get anything done. And I think people are actually probably, elected Trump basically with that in mind. What else did he do during his reality show but fire people? That's like all he did. We gathered together in front of the TV to watch him fire people, right?
It's true. It's like people respond to that performance. It's what people respond to. They're not thinking about government when they vote. We're removed from government. People are really, most of Trump's voters simply vote for him because they like him. And, they're entitled.
But what did they like about him? He just, he fired everybody who was on his show.
Yeah, they just
Ha
respond.
ha! Trump was
They just
literally a
trust.
firebrand.
They just sort of very simply think the system has been bad and proven to be corrupt, and I don't trust the system. This guy is saying he's not the system. He's saying he's going to throw a monkey wrench in the works. I want that. It's that simple. That's really the political constructs are just pretty crude. It's like for some, not all. There are plenty of Trump voters who are much more politically educated than me and anybody I even have ever.
They aren't behind Trump anymore. I can assure you. The ones
All
who
right,
are
maybe they're all
want
gone now.
the fast structure. They
don't know,
want
man.
the few to oppress the many.
Yeah, this is my sense. I mean, maybe I shouldn't get up here and say with authority what the real Trump voters are thinking and feeling right now. I haven't talked to a Trump voter like in person in a very long time. I mean, so I don't even know.
Well, unfortunately, I have.
You talk to on our podcast on a regular basis people who who voted for Trump in the past.
Yeah, but we're talking about people who now currently still support Trump.
Yeah.
Every person who voted for Trump in the past we've had on the podcast coincidentally has not been supportive of Trump now, except Rich Ryle, I think.
Trump from 6 months ago is a different Trump from now. That's the level of difference in Trump's support.
For wrestling, yeah.
Even my grandparents and my father, who are very conservative and watch Fox News regularly, I can tell that they have a lot of hesitation with what's going on, but they still support him. So it's definitely subliminal racism, if nothing else.
We could get back to what you said about how you're shocked there hasn't been a headline about the president monarchy-style usurping the power of the purse from Congress. And I think you're right. Let me just give you a framework for why I'm not shocked. You are a systemic thinker. That's the way you experience the world. This is obviously a huge and flagrant transgression. But most people are thinking logistically short-term, like, the people need money, and there's truth to that too. So the papers aren't going to, play to the smaller audience, which is you and me, the systemic thinker, right? That's my take.
I can understand that, but even then, I think there would be some papers that would happily go out of their way to exaggerate that the president is trying to become a king, like outright with structure under him.
Well, I think that Trump is really scared at this point because we've got Kamala Harris here coming in as the VP, as the pick.
Oh, no kidding, he's scared. No rational man would try and literally destroy a national service like this unless they were paranoid and scared.
Right, and I think what he's really terrified of is having to go to jail, after he steps down. So he is not wanting to step down in any way, and if he does have to step down, that would be somebody that he loves in there who's going to pardon him on the next day, right?
Oh man, you're so right. This is his karma coming home to roost.
Come up, right? And Kamala Harris, I've never really liked her because of her prosecutor roots, but I think that she was chosen specifically because of her sort of ability to verbally attack and sort of litigate all the bad things that Trump has been doing. She would know all of the rules that he's breaking, right? And she would know how to attack him in that way. So it's kind of interesting.
I think that depends how much of her own job she does, which I don't really know.
So yeah, Kamala Harris, I think, is a good sort of a compliment to Joe, because then Joe he's already in his ads, he's been doing more attacks against Trump right now, and I think he can kind of she's going to help him with that aspect of it. And as much as I don't really like I'd rather them be focused on solutions and things like that. I think at this point they've chosen a different a different way to
Yeah.
approach this.
They've chosen to give the voters the choice between fascism and neoliberalism for another 4 years. So,
Well, they've chosen to go on the attack, right? And that's what
I think
that's what they're doing together.
Sheridan, I think you nailed it. I think that's the framework, and it's very discouraging. But that's the framework. That's the best, most realistic way to think of it. That's what's happening.
and I'm really glad that Yang is on the DNC speaking list now, but I wish they would have given him a full 5 minutes. Could you imagine? Heads would spin with 5 minutes of Yang.
Yang can't do his tight five.
No, he only has 2 minutes.
Yang can do a lot with 2 minutes.
I know he can do a lot, but a tight five, he could have spun. He could have upset Biden with 5 minutes at the DNC.
I would love to see like his updated stump speech, which is like what we would have gotten if he had 5. But we'll see a good 2-minute elevator pitch instead.
I think Andrew is going to be trying to help people to come into the fold and vote for Joe. That's what he's trying to get that time for.
I will watch, and I will be open-minded, and I will see if he can convince me to vote for the architect of America's private prison system, Joe Biden.
Which is why they gave him more than 2 minutes, but if
Right?
that's what he gets, that's what he gets. I mean, there's a lot of
Because no one's going to swing like Yang.
Can I just say, though, it's quite impressive that the Yang Gang was like, fuck you, DNC. We're going to get at least 2 minutes. We pulled through. It was kind of super impressive.
You gotta stand up for yourself, We did it. We stood up for ourselves.
There's also a chance that they just left his name off the list because they were already contacting him, right? They had already contacted him about speaking several times, and it could have been a mistake. For some reason, he just gets left off a lot by mistake.
I really don't think it's a mistake at this point. I really think that it's very few individuals in these large institutions that get lucky and go, I'm going to snub him.
Yeah, it's like there's a pattern, and we've all watched the pattern go down. I'd like to get back to saving the post office and so forth. I think one of the things that people don't know about is that the Postal Service has been under attack for a really long time, right? This has been
since like 08, right?
Yeah,
or 06.
Well, it seems that a while back, right, they passed some sort of a Postal Reorganization Act, right? And then they passed which was generally okay because that gave you more, it gave full collective bargaining rights to their employees, okay? And they became financially self-supporting. That was back in 1970, okay? But then, in 2006, all of a sudden, they also passed the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act. All of these acts always have beautiful sounding names that are just, oh, they're so wonderful. But this one imposed a unique burden on the Postal Service by requiring it to pre-fund retirees' health benefits through annual payments of about $5.5 billion for 10 years. That means they had to pay $55 billion into a fund that is to pay for things that don't need to be paid for yet. So it would be like if you had personally to, pay for all of your health care, in advance right now, right, for the rest of your life. So they calculated how much money it would cost, right, to actually fund, all of their retirees' health benefits, all the way until their, likely expiration date. And they said, okay, the Postal Service is now going to put that money aside and put it somewhere. And this obligation is the only thing that is putting them in debt. They are not actually, there's no private company that has to do this. And Social Security is being paid, by people's current contributions. When we say that that's our money, no, actually the money that you paid in has already been used, right? So whoever is working right now is paying into it, and that's being used to pay out at the exact, right now. Nothing is paid in advance for the next 20 years, 25 years, right? There's no other corporation that really has to do this. So the USPS has had this unreasonable burden put on them, and that's the only thing that makes them show a debt. So if they didn't have to do this crazy thing, then they would still be that profitable. I mean, they're the only reliably profitable piece of our government. So it's really interesting that, since 2006, it hasn't changed. And that happened during the George Bush administration.
The other thing is, like, we are very reliant on the postal service for getting new IDs. We're reliant on it for like our bills and stuff like that. But like, there's a lot of services that we are required by law to use, like an address for. Like it's ridiculous that they want to take it away, especially for anybody who, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how getting rid of the post office affects homeless people, but maybe that's the only way they get sent money, I think we need to consider stuff like that as well.
Oh yeah, they affect homeless people. PO boxes are huge. Like I know some people that's the only way they communicate and do anything, like to even get anything in some areas.
Yeah, for all that we complain about the Postal Service sometimes, we have to stand in line or something like that. But according to this article by The Atlantic that was made in April 24th of this year, the United States Postal Service is among the country's most popular institutions, enjoying approval ratings as high as 90%. What other part of our government gets 90% approval? Certainly not Trump's office.
Yeah.
And for people who are talking about, maybe Bezos will buy the post office or somebody else will, come in and privatize it. The USPS still actually delivers like 48% of the entire world's mail to 160 million homes.
Really, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's not a an amount that can actually be taken over by anybody else.
So that's a huge vested interest that foreign countries have here. Could they perhaps, put themselves into the equation?
Well, that would be really awful, right? I mean, what would we be doing? Trying to sell it?
Well, if I'm saying if the USPS serves all these foreign countries, Faye, wouldn't those foreign countries then have a stake in this and support the USPS?
Shale, you're misunderstanding what that statistic was actually saying.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. What am I misunderstanding?
The total world volume. America has a lot of mail because we suck up a lot of consumer products.
Right. I erroneously presumed because of that statistic being so big. Yes. It must not just be America, but that was my incorrect presumption. Thank you. All right. Well, there we go.
Well, I think it does affect, how things are delivered because we do deliver mail from outside our country. So yeah, like it's reliably delivering things for people who are sending us things from outside of our country as well.
Now that's why it has a 91% approval rate. It actually delivers.
And that is why Trump is actually going to be voting by mail himself. So for him to say that it doesn't work, I mean, yes, every type of system is susceptible to somebody who is wanting to disrupt it or wanting to, be criminally minded about it. If you're going to be a criminal, you'll find a way to do it. But that's why we have federal lockup. We lock up people who do those things. I was personally in jail with a lot of people who were caught for mail fraud, and that's one of our biggest, crimes these days. But that's what we, that's on people who are trying to, do criminal actions. The U.S. Postal Service is providing an amazing service. Goes to anywhere. If you live in the United States, anywhere you live, you could be out in the rural area. You could be, hours away. You could be, in the middle of a lake. The USPS is going to deliver to you because that's part of their requirements, right? That's part of their vision and mission for the United States is that no matter where you live, they deliver that piece of mail to you for how much is it now? Like 55 cents, something like that?
Yeah. It's ridiculous how inflation is going.
I don't see any private corporation being able to take over that kind of. In the rural areas, we don't even have people building out internet to us, and if you wait for private companies to do all this, very likely a lot of people will just not have any mail service.
I personally believe that all our inevitable needs that we have as human beings in our current society should be able to be minimally cost to the human beings, because it's all of us, right? We have value for being humans. Some people act like that's not the case, but whatever. So, but like if we have to by law get a driver's license, and in one state you can have it until you're 65, and another state is every 2 years you have to change it. Like maybe it's 4 years, but uh, there's so much discrepancy, and people are making a lot of money off of stuff like this, right? And I think they should just be services that our taxes pay for, right? But and then all the extra stuff comes from private pocket, and I think that would make people feel better about paying their taxes too, because they would know what it goes to, and they would actually feel taken care of. And if they're vulnerable and need to ask for assistance, it's not going to be this whole shaming you for needing our help. It's here. This is you're a human being that I value, but our government doesn't value us on that level unless we're making money. I think that's a big problem. Um, but of course, there's issues to like make something like that become a reality, but I don't think it's impossible. I think you would have to have lots of experts to discuss how to make that happen. Don't go in it willy nilly. But like, what's just incredible is like how our government is trying to give out money and they're doing a shit job, right? But Andrew Yang jumped in with his team and they're just getting to work. I started reading this book called The Culture Code, and essentially, the way our politics are running is like these. They had this study where it was like kindergartners versus like uh, all sorts of adults that have their strategies and stuff. And it was talking about how they had to build this spaghetti structure with tape, dry spaghetti, glue, and a marshmallow. And the marshmallow had to be at the top of it. The kindergartners consistently overperformed over everybody else, and that is because they just jumped in and did the work, right? And I would say Andrew Yang's team's a lot like those kindergartners, and even our podcast in a lot of ways. We just jump in and do the work, and we like, okay.
I'd say so.
I think we need more groups to be like that, and our like there's so much to politics that it's all like, who do I have to obey, who's in charge, when the reality is they're not getting anything done, right? But the people who just jump in were successful.
You bring up a very good point, Faye. I think that we are programmed when we grow up to look for the person who's in charge and look to be given direction. Because, whether it's home, it's your mom or your dad, you just want to do something, always ask for permission. And then school. School, it all is such a top-down structure with, like, wait your turn, don't cut in line, or like wait to be told what your homework is, wait to be told what you need to do, wait for instructions from the teacher, just don't do this on your own. And then we're released into the wild after years and years of captivity, and then we learn how to be and then we just learn how to be self-sufficient, some of us, but some people never do. But I don't blame them, because our is this top-down structure, so it's glad that this yang gang mentality kind of like took over, and we're creating by ourselves without being told.
Hi,
We're also
Ariel. Thanks for
self-motivated.
joining us today.
Yeah, hi guys. Was it just me, you, Shale, Sharon, 5? That's nice,
It's the 5 of us.
We had Craig, but he left.
We had Sherry, but she had severe technical difficulties. So sorry, Sherry. I do apologize. We had Zoom going, and I said we should go to Discord, and it does give us kind of a higher quality audio podcast. But Sherry couldn't. I thought we could talk her through the technical problems, so we lost her. But hopefully, we'll get her up to speed on Discord and everything squared away for next time. Anyway.
So I didn't notice you pop in, Ariel. But have you been catching up with the news of this week?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't care anymore. It's just like the shit hit the fan a long time ago, and I just thought that Yang would be like, we'd clean up all the shit, with the Yang presidency. But the thing is that it's one thing where they let the shit hit the fan and they put shit all over the place, but when they don't even let us clean it and they try to stop us from cleaning it, that's when like it pisses me off. It's like, hey, like a Yang presidency could have cleaned up all of your shit, but you like you don't even want us to do the best for ourselves. Like all the people who are blaming, I don't know, people for being lazy and not wanting to do anything. It's like it's like when we have a solution or we have an answer and we want to implement it, and they even want to block off that implementation. That's what pisses me off. And yeah.
It's interesting that.
Oh, sorry. I'll let you get in a second. But Ariel, it sounds like you are a little disappointed. I hear like a real disappointment in your voice. Were you holding out hope that Yang would be chosen as Joe Biden's VP pick?
No, not really. I was just saying, like, with what Trump is doing with like the postal service and stuff, it kind of seems like it's just so weird. It's like, can he really do that? I mean, so it's like, uh, it's kind of weird, because now that I look at like the Republicans just not giving a damn about anything, like taking these vacations and stuff while the country is burning, and like not even wanting to extend the like $600, and it's like, okay, well then they're toast. I mean, like, what do they have to offer instead of their failed ideologies? And it's like they kind of know this, so they want to like suppress the vote too. It's like, at first I thought like, but now I'm kind of like, something's kind of fishy around here.
Yeah, it sounds like that's about right.
Yeah, it's really really weird how this is all kind of going down the way it's going. I mean, honestly, I thought that, like I said, just for his ego, Trump would like do some crazy shit, like say, you know what, I want unemployment benefits to be like $700, and then like go like that, and I want to give even more money to people. So because he's such a narcissist, I thought, hey, well, if you're going to be a narcissist, at least help people too and credit yourself, and you can still be a narcissist, but you can be a helpful narcissist. But his
That's called an enlightened narcissist, in my opinion. They they understand it, that it's important, but they're still kind of like, their behaviors are still a bit off. And
Exactly. Look,
Very enabled narcissist, I think,
exactly.
is what you're describing.
If you're helping out a person get out of poverty, but you're only doing it for like the camera and your own glory, I'd rather that person be helped out of poverty and getting the glory and the fame and all that stuff. I mean, I don't mind that. There's some people who say like, oh, then you only help that person because you got the credit or the fame for it. But it's like, has the person been helped? Yes. Okay. Like another person who doesn't want fame or glory, but they're not gonna help people, then I don't care. Like, help the fucking person. But his whole like 300, and then the states have to pay the extra 100. It's like you just pulls it out of his ass, and it like, how are we going to implement this?
But
And
there's an entire like slew of different fallacies at play right now with our mental thinking. Like there's so many faulty thinkings that we have that are just ingrained in us.
right.
I mean, but also there's a lot of mental disorders. Like honestly, I would say Trump is a hoarder of money. Okay, he's a hoarder, except for he's got it on a larger scale, right? He's playing this game and he's winning and he feels on top of the world, but he doesn't see how it affects the little guy, right? Because he's so disconnected. But again, like hoarding is a mental disorder, and it's
it's not his money. It's like the country's money.
Exactly, but he's playing a game, and he thinks this is just part of his bounty.
But like, I thought he was going to be like a narcissist and just give the money, and because he wants the credit. But now I'm really pissed off because it turns out that he's more of an ideologue narcissist than a practical narcissist, because his whole thing coming in was, I'm going to create the jobs, and his mind is so fixated on like jobs. I'm like, good, like helping people work and helping them get jobs, that he doesn't see the practicality in just letting the money go without the jobs. Remember, he said like, oh, I will be the greatest jobs president that ever lived, and now we've seen the worst job losses in history. So anyways, full of shit. But like, that's the part. I mean if he just came out and said, you know what, like, I'm just gonna toss all the money to the people right now, and I'm just gonna do it, and he won a second term on that, and he just did that, I'd be like, hey, he may be a narcissist, but it's helping people, it's doing something good. But it's like, okay, he's a narcissist and he's a fucking idiot. So there's no, there's nothing you can do at this point. He's got to go.
He definitely has helped create this further narrative about money, and like you need to work for that money. And like just yesterday I was talking to this couple, and I told them all about all the different, like, just how people got to the space they are mentally. I keep pointing out that like Jeffrey Epstein, 30 years worth of sex trafficking girls through a pyramid scheme, that was very effective. And then those traumatized children had children and raised them with trauma because they didn't have the knowledge and or love or time to heal their trauma or any of this, right? But it was also just like you were groomed into accepting abusive behavior, whether emotional or physical, but I'm like, we have so much of that built up, and so everyone's being trauma driven right now.
Well, that's the United States. It's like the United States of trauma, the United States of bullshit.
It's worldwide though. Oh, it's 100% worldwide. I mean, during my research, I like stopped at one point and I looked at what I wrote down. I was like, how is the whole world traumatized? Because I was trying to write stuff on consent culture, and I was only coming to this conclusion from all the people that I had talked to, and I talked to a lot of people. Right? And I was just like, this is crazy. And I realized when I was experiencing the peak of my trauma, before I had to stop drinking to get my frontal lobe to work again, and I had to go to therapy. But it took a lot to get away from that trauma because I felt like I was on autopilot. I couldn't control how I reacted because I was very emotional, and it felt like I was just watching my own life, and I'm not the only person who's ever experienced this. It even manifests in TV shows, that are coming out. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance. We have these competing beliefs, and we're just stuck on it. But then if you're told that jobs are the way and you're on autopilot, you're this NPC, then how you know how dare you step off that path? I mean, it takes a while to rewire your brain. I mean, it took me at least 4 years of steady studying for me to even be the person you see today. This was a lot of work, but I'm not as trauma driven as I once was, and it's hard to find people who aren't really, but you can tell who is because they're a very unique individual, and you're like, this person has had kind of an awakening of
And
sorts,
I think, like, the old saying goes, like, hurt people, so it's like we have like a generations and generations of like hurt that are just like, it's like hurt is like just as much as a virus as a virus is. I mean, it's insane. But it's like when you talk about ways that like, it doesn't have to be like this. People don't even want to listen because, like Yang said, like, hey, like, there's an easy fix. Like, we can do this, and we don't have like we don't have to be so stressed out. We don't have to be so anxious. This is a choice, and that's the thing. Some people see that they don't think we have a choice. They think that misery and drudgery is an inevitability, but they can't open their minds enough to see that it's not an inevitability, it's a choice. But they're like, you got to shake them out of their
yes,
ignorance.
but it's a choice that you are being forced to make, and you might not even be able to weigh in with your own personal beliefs and value systems because you're in survival mode and you need this, to survive. It's just kind of so sad because for me, even the worst of the people that I've met, I can still find like where the trauma has affected them, and I walk amongst my friends who have kids, and I can hear the trauma being encoded in a small child's brain because the way we are interpreting all that is it's not healthy. If you're yelling at your child to sit and they're crying, maybe redirection is probably a better choice. But also, why are you so determined to have them sit, right? And so it's like a check yourself too, because we project a lot, and it's just, I mean, if I said the same words that a friend says to their child back to her, I don't think she'd want to be my friend, But she doesn't see that because she's dealing with her own pain.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and it's just, I don't know. When I was in the women's shelter, I saw it a lot.
Well, I mean, if you look at someone like Erica Simone, who's like running for Congress, I don't know, but it seems to me that a lot of that trauma was not in her life, and she's just turned out to be. Why don't we have more people walking around the world like her? And it's so beautiful. Like, she wants to give children a voice. Like, she did that whole thing with, like, she said, like, children, and that's beautiful because young people don't have a voice in our world, in our society. It's like young people should be seen, not heard. Well, you know what? Fuck you. They didn't. They should be heard. They should have a choice. They didn't choose to come to this planet. You gave birth to them, so you should respect them. They should be. How would you like it if you turned old and I told you you should be seen and not heard? Asshole. I remember just being young and being so mad at the world for just like not that I was like in poverty or didn't have money, but just because like I didn't think that my voice actually mattered. So I mean, what Erica is doing is just wonderful. I mean, like I don't know, but it looks like Erica can like help people who are in trauma because like she just it just looks like maybe there are people in this world who have figured out the secret and they're like not in this constant state of like trauma and survival mode and shit like that, and even some rich people are constantly in trauma even though they have money. It has nothing to do with how much trauma they have, but then like we have to learn the secrets of like people like Erica, because I just think like she's the diamond in the rough out there trying to make everything better.
I think all it takes is mindful work to rewire your brain, and paying attention to when you want to indulge in a coping mechanism because you were vulnerable and like you made a bad decision during that time, and to look back at that with gentle curiosity. But honestly, we need help guidance out of our trauma. I mean, I would say I'm no longer trauma driven. I catch myself, falling back once in a while, but I've learned techniques while I'm not traumatized and in those vulnerable moments. It's like practicing for a game. You're learning the moves, you're getting the muscle memory for when that time does happen. But that means learning like techniques to stop panic attacks. Does singing happy birthday while looking back and forth dramatically help reduce your anxiety? I mean, it works for me, but I have to do it a couple times sometimes, but it brings me out of a panic attack. But it's learning these kind of tools that a lot of us don't have the time to do or the know that they exist, right? Probably because we haven't gone to therapy. It's only recently that going to therapy was even not shamed. Remember, that used to be a big thing. Oh, you must be a weird one. You want to go to therapy. It's not that way anymore. It's like, hey, are you okay? Like, do you need to go to therapy? Like, can I help you with that? I'm not saying that happens all the time, but now even our Facebook is popping up with like online therapy.
Right. So I've been to, I have a therapist, and she's about to, she's leaving so I'm going to be getting a new one. And I'm going to really miss her. And so when I suggest therapy to somebody, I'm not saying to them, therapy is going to solve your problems. It's just that it's helping me. So if it's helping me, maybe it could help somebody else. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who've had bad experiences, right, with therapists who were not helpful to them. So it's hard to try something again, give something another chance if you've had a bad experience with it.
And that comes from aversion, right? That's something, if you have a traumatic experience or it wasn't helpful, it's like, well, what was the point? I don't need to do this again because I've already learned it doesn't work, right?
Right.
Especially if you do it maybe even a couple times and it's still not working because it's distasteful after a while. It maybe like makes us feel hopeless.
I have an aversion to doctors, and I have an aversion to like police people, but I know that at the same time those are necessary and very important jobs, and so it's like it is difficult to get over those, but I have to in order to take care of myself sometimes. So.
Yeah, but if more people went to therapy, we probably wouldn't, and people had enough money to not live in scarcity mindset. I think we would have a lot less crime, and there would be a lot less police brutality because there wouldn't even be as many calls. And there wouldn't be as many situations to, But the problem is, cops get money for some of the things they do. Like handing out 1 million tickets. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do that to make our department money.
Well,
It's the wrong
when you've had a
incentive.
negative interaction with a police person, then it's really hard the next time to not go into panic mode or not go into, when you see the policeman coming already, you're like, wait a minute, you want to start running. And people don't understand that when they see, they say, well, why did he run, right? If you've already had some really bad, interactions, you just have an instinct. You want to get out of there.
Yeah, it's that, and it's also just like, some people just hate confrontation, even with their own friends, let alone a police officer who could actually like really fuck up your life. So it's quite intimidating to even be in that situation, especially if maybe you have lower IQ bandwidth or whatever. If you have a mental disability, that's going to be even harder to tolerate that kind of stuff, especially autism. Like, they already don't want to look you in the eye, and maybe communication, they're fearful because they're like, the way I communicate is not the way you communicate, and there's no time even taken to clarify language, because we define words differently too. You could have a person jokefully saying the N-word and another person like really offended by that, right? And there's different connotations, there's different meanings behind these words.
It's like
Even
difficult to get people to like get help or accept help. I find that to be the hardest part. Is like getting people to say, I could use some help to stop having this reaction, or what makes it so people will actually seek the help that they actually need.
most of the time I run into people like, well, I can't afford therapy. That's what I've been hearing the most. I'm like, hey, let's talk. I know things. I'm not licensed, take it as you will, but, I try to ask guiding questions so that they come to their own conclusions. And sometimes I'll explain the neurology behind their behaviors, which actually is quite reassuring to them, because they're like, oh, this is normal to react this particular way because I haven't rewired my brain since my original aversion during a traumatic incident.
So it's interesting that there are ways to help people stop having the wrong type of reactions to things. But probably my feeling is that people just don't trust enough to engage in that kind of work. A lot of times people don't feel like they need any help, or if they feel like they need help, they get the wrong kind. When they seek help, they can't find the right kind of therapy, and it just continues getting worse. So, like, for example, it helps me to have certain names for a type of therapy, for example, right? Because there are lots of different types of therapists, and they work in different ways. And, like, for example, I've heard of something called cognitive behavioral therapy. And, that if you have a word for this
That's the
particular
one.
style, it may help to connect you to the right person.
I think that particular therapy is, in my research, probably one of the better of them, because it's very forward thinking. Based on my research about therapies, the ones that make you go back actually just re-traumatize you, re-trigger you, put you back in a vulnerable spot, and you actually might go back into coping mechanisms because that's the only true way you know how to deal with that. So it's actually not as helpful as people think it is. But if you go to cognitive behavioral therapy, it helps you, it has to get kind of a foundation in the beginning, because that's the kind I had. They like some groundwork to understand what's happened, but then, uh, like, how many steps back did this decision actually get made? And then what ends up happening is you kind of formulate an action plan for change, while also going through like worksheets and stuff to kind of just really find the source. And a lot, does stem from our childhood and trauma back then. But they have, like, I went with somebody, I was her first adult patient. She had just only worked with kids before I showed up, so, oh, and I was a handful. She only had me for like 5 weeks, I think, and because I was in Colorado briefly to help my sister out. She was going through some stuff, and I was like, I'm nomadic, let me help you out. But um, it was one of the best decisions I could have made, for my life. It really changed the trajectory, and I totally encourage more people to do it.
See, I've heard very
And
positive things about that from you and from other people who have, seen it working. But then there's also people who believe that it's like torture or like something horrible. Like there are people who believe that it's also like who think that it's unethical or something like that in terms of like for people who have autism, for example, and I just find that really interesting. But there's such a wide range of different types of therapies out there. If you try one, it doesn't work for you. It may be that you just want to try it with somebody else, or you want to try it with, you could try it with a different sort of system, and it could work for you. So I would say like when I try something if I try some food and it doesn't taste good, well, that could be a lot of different reasons. Could be like the chef is not very good. I don't like this particular recipe. Maybe I would like it with a different sauce or something. I don't know. But there's always another chance I might try it again. And so I hope that people will, sort of give therapy a second chance, or give policemen a second chance, or give your fellow, Republicans a second chance if you're, whatever it is that you think is so, absolutely horrible. Let's pull it back just a little bit and say, maybe if it's a little bit, in a different setting, this would be fine. Or, it's not every single one of this particular type that I hate, or I don't, doesn't work with me. I don't know what kind of therapy we really need for our POTUS right now, but I feel like he really could use some, and I feel that this is the thing that I struggle with is the people
Psychedelics,
that I
I'd say.
think
I'm a
need
big
it.
fan of psychedelics.
Yeah, that might be the thing that works for him. But like the people that need a little bit of therapy, some often do not seek it, and I don't know what to do about that.
I think that's what drone flying has become for me. Just to just it's nice to just like go somewhere, not think about whatever, and just to do something and then focus all of your attention on that moment in time, except the things that are nagging you in the back of your head. So just yesterday, me and my friend, we went out to like the Point Doom. There's a place it's called, and like sometimes it's annoying too because it's like we drove the car all the way up there just to like not find parking. It's just the problem in California. And so then we parked somewhere close. We went up to like a pier, and I just took the drone and I just like flew and took some pictures and like said, "Hey, what's that? What's that?" It's like I think that's what's so beautiful when you're like a kid. You're like 6 or 7, and there's no bills. There's no like nothing. There's no assignments you have to turn in, and it's like, hey, I can live in the moment, and my mind doesn't have to be somewhere else. It can just be here at this spot. Like you're going to the beach, or like the best times are like when you're on a vacation where it's like my mind is just here. I'm not thinking about politics. I'm not thinking about finances. I'm not thinking about my relationships. I'm not thinking about anything. It's just here in this moment, and focused on like the task at hand. I mean, I think I think that's what the freedom dividend could like open up when your mental bandwidth is open, that you can just be in the moment, and then there's just that not that nagging thought in the back of your head all the time. Oh, but when I get here and this is gonna happen, or like oh, and then I'm worried about this, and then I have to go home and I have to do this, and if I don't do this, then that's gonna happen, and this, and it's like it's like grow like it's like a mental illness.
Well, I remember that Andrew Yang felt that every president, right, should have some sort of a mental health checkup. But if you have a mental health checkup, that means you would also need like some sort of specialist to maybe read that information and maybe work with you, right? If there's certain things that you might, there's obviously going to be very stressful, right, to be in that type of having that sort of responsibility. So I wonder, how would they decide what kind of therapy or what kind of therapist would be necessary? It's very interesting.
That's true.
You would really have to trust that person, right? Like, 'cause
Right.
there's so many secrets. But honestly, I think our government should be way more transparent than it is. Like, the fact that we have so many secrets is the biggest problem of them all, right? Like, oh, I'm not going to tell about Joe Bob's thing he did over here because he's my friend. And he caught me doing this thing. So honestly, like, it's going to work out for us both. This secret's a good idea. Or maybe, oh yeah, we just went in and killed a bunch of people and tortured them. We don't need the world to know that. Like, that's we're terrorists to some people in this like not country. Well, maybe, but like, we go in and we're like, hey, we're gonna protect you. Also, give us all your stuff. And then, all right, bye.
Yeah, some people would argue that what Trump is doing to the post office right now would be something that a terrorist would do if they were trying to take down our elections.
I could see that. I mean, like what he's doing is like so criminal, and yet we want to switch to automation because that's what feels safer. And he's just like, no automation. Also, let me do what I'm trying to do. Stupid.
So, what about this? Psychedelics. How would that work? Let's hear more about how would that help?
Psychedelics?
Yeah.
How would that help Donald Trump? Well, people
Yeah.
say he's an egomaniac, right? Categorically, psychedelics are ego suppressants. So that would directly address his egomania, and they're entheogens. They increase empathy. So that would directly address his narcissism. So I think it is literally just he should just be microdosing mushrooms every 2 days.
So we would need an expert for that to work with the president. What about for Congress? I like the suggestion a while back by some comedian.
Every one of them.
Yeah, that from now on, before they make decisions, they would have to, partake of something so that they would be in the right mindset.
I bet
We laugh, but this was totally the case for ancient cultures. The ancient cultures would dose with whatever chemical tools they felt best enabled them to negotiate peace treaties and things. So we joke, but it's been a real part of human
They
culture
need
and
to
history
be-
successfully.
They need to smoke that peace pipe together.
Yeah, man.
But it's also like a bonding ceremony too. If you are smoking a peace pipe together, you increase your amount of collisions with other people and talking to see other people's perspectives on the world. If you're actually listening. I don't necessarily know if Trump listens all the time, unless it's to help him.
Well, like what our side also needs to learn. It's like their side needs to learn to calm down for sure, but our side also needs to learn how to get a little aggressive for what we want to implement in this world. Because I remember like my father, he'd hate conflicts. He'd never ever want to be like a part of anything where it like where there was even a potential for conflict. But then he just ended up being like a doormat and taken advantage of and exploited, and never standing up for himself, never standing up for me, for what he'd believe in. So as much as I love like the humanity first and like treat everyone with respect, but there is a certain point where like you got to keep some people in check. And if that means having to get a little aggressive, then if we fail to do that, it's like we're never going to get anything done.
Well, you know what? Okay. If the opportunity ever presents itself, I will do mushrooms with Trump. But that would be a very intense.
Fact right here today. I think we can all agree.
I think it would be a good guide for that kind of thing. I'm just saying.
At this point, I feel like it's it's too late because he needs to be out, right? So it's almost like, the question now is how do we get him out of there without destroying, without letting him destroy our country in the process.
This is hilarious. The tic-tac-toe thing that I put in the live stream. I think Faye, you saw it. It's funny, like the expression on the reporter's face. It's like, what are you doing? And the impression on Trump's face is like, what? It's fine. I don't see anything wrong with that. It's like,
I'm winning.
I think that's like right. That's been his whole presidency. Everybody making that face at him, and him coming back with like, everything's fine. It's okay. Like, I know. He's just,
Well, what about when he's been challenging Joe to several things, Joe Biden. So one of the things he challenged Joe Biden to do was a cognitive test, which then Joe kind of failed because he said that he didn't, why would I do one? He said, and then he said, just imagine how that would look. And he said, imagine if you had to do a drug test or something in order to get your job. And it was like, wow, he doesn't realize that a lot of Americans really do have to go through a drug test to get their job, But like now that he's done this cognitive test, he's so excited about how he thinks he did so well on it. He wants to challenge Joe to do it too. And then the second challenge that he's been issuing is he wants to he wants to start debating him earlier. So there's already 3 debates set up, but he wants to do it now. He wants to start debating. I wonder why he's doing these things.
It's a lot of attack on personal character and not so much about the actual issues at hand. It's deflection. It's distraction. It's emotional. Therefore, the more emotional you can get somebody, the easier it is to make them look crazy, right? I think that's part of his tactic, though.
So he really thinks that he would win in all of these arenas, though. That he can. I think he would win on a cognitive test by cheating. Now, what about the debates? I don't know. I mean, I don't know why he's doing all these crazy things right now, but So there are 3 debates actually scheduled, and this coming week is going to be the beginning. I think on Monday is the beginning of the Democratic National Convention, right? And so that's what we're hoping to see Andrew on. I think he's scheduled to start us. He's going to be on the 3rd day. Is that right? I want to make sure that. I think he's supposed to be on Wednesday to start off during the kickoff. So that's something that we'll be looking forward to. And then there's going to be 3 presidential debates. After the first presidential debate, there will be a vice presidential debate. So what do you think is going to be coming up for us during all of this time? Are you looking forward to any of this, or is it just going to be,
I'm not looking forward to any of the political theater. I don't think there's anything for me to learn about 2 candidates of which I have absolutely no interest or faith in, so no.
I'm looking forward to Yang on Thursday.
That's about it, huh?
Yep.
What about
I mean, maybe the vice president's debate would be interesting to watch, but I think that's about
I
it.
don't think so. What are you going to get out of that?
Watching Kamala tear down Pence. I mean, who doesn't want to watch Pence get pied in the face?
I don't care. I have better things to do than watch that ghoul take a pie. Whatever.
what about these third parties? The Green Party, our good friends from all these different.
I advised a friend of mine to vote for the Green Party today. She's like, I don't know what to do with my vote. It's like, just Green Party. It's only, just vote against the system. Vote for the closest option vote for the closest semi-viable option, not truly viable, but semi-viable, that approaches the ballpark of like what we know we need. And the only one is Howie Hawkins. Nah.
Does he at least does he at least support the UBI?
He doesn't have anything exactly about a UBI. He says during the pandemic he does support like a $2,000 UBI, supports those bills, but I don't think he actually has. Wait, gosh, did he say he did? He was on the show, and now I'm going to absolutely look
He
a
said
fool.
he was.
Did
but
he?
I could,
Okay, so I can't remember ultimately.
Well, the reason you
So
don't
did he
think he
say
does
I did
is
watch the
because,
show, but it was a pretty nuanced answer he
Right,
gave
the
on it,
reason
and,
is
and it's not in his
Are-
it's not
platform. So
universal. It is a
Right,
basic
that's the
income,
thing.
but it's not universal.
So-
It cuts
Are you
off.
talking
so
about
here's the thing.
Howie
That's the thing.
Hawkins?
Yeah, Howie Hawkins.
Oh yeah. So his thing was through the IRS. It was a
And he
basic
tested-
income that would be a rebate.
So this is this is 3/4 of the way there. So, not
Yeah.
quite. But that's why I say vote for the thing that actually represents the direction. This actually represents the direction I think the country should go, and I'm going to make my voice heard, even though we're not going to
Well, now-
become the president this year.
Kamala Harris did put out a $2,000 recurrent cash stimulus for the people. Is that right?
She's actually supporting the proposal from Bernie Sanders and Ed Markey, which does $2,000 a month for the duration of the pandemic, 3 months afterward, and remits all the money that would have been given to people when this pandemic started if we had gotten our act together. And so it's like $14,000 people would get if we passed it tomorrow.
So I actually think that with Kamala Harris in there and a relatively good relationship between her and Andrew Yang, that this could continue to progress into something that's more like a real UBI. So people who are interested in UBI should continue looking at this possibility. Kamala Harris and Andrew Yang have appeared several times in recent months to discuss that recurrent cash stimulus. So. Right.
I
Well,
mean,
hope you'll give her a
I hope
chance.
we can be hopeful. I hope giving our chances the right move. The counter argument is, well, this is pandering. This is theater. This is nothing more than lip service. All these forming of committees, all these meetings, they are to harvest our vote without representing us, because they don't represent a commitment to anything.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Shale.
true.
I will say Biden has one last chance with Yang's speech to win me over to him, or I'm going to definitely vote green this cycle.
So yeah, for me, it's definitely hard to come around to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Both of them were not they would say probably the two that I did not want, and here they are, the chosen ones. But like Faydoni mentioned, I have a significant bias against somebody who is a prosecutor. So
I think that's
have to
perfectly
consider
reasonable. I have it too. I think it's perfect. I think a person's values, if they're a prosecutor, must not be okay, because you're representing a horrible systemic injustice, and I don't want that near my government.
And yet, that is like one of the basic functions of government, unfortunately. So, she must know that system very well, at least. So, all right. Well, do you guys want to bring it to a close now?
I think it should. It's been a couple hours, and I think Faye has a phone call soon, right?
She does. Faye, break a
too
leg,
exciting.
kill it, and all the euphemisms.
And we're
all
talking
those
about Faye Doney.
Of course.
You're gonna do great.
Well, while Faye's getting her audio on, I'm going to sign off, and I'm at Palestine Mouth on Twitter. And if you check me out on Facebook, I hope you can go and sign up for the Yang Gang Report. We're a page that continues to do live streams on a regular basis, you know. All right. Sheridan, do you want to close out?
I suppose I will go next. I am Sheridan. You can find me on Twitter at JSaberGamer, and I am named Furry Sparkle. Do not be confused. It's my online handle.
Is that your cutie mark? Hey.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
My name is Shale. My Twitter is SHAELRILEY. Thank you so much for joining us on our Basic Income Advocacy podcast. We are an information source, a support group, a think tank, every weekend, about 3 times. So, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for participating. I love you, and I hope you will join me again tomorrow.